Hi, everyone. Welcome to our guest trainer this week. I'm Janet Fudler. I'm the creator of this group. Thank you all for joining us. Today we have Karena Moss. She has been a rebel homeschool mom for a decade, and she's going to share her tips on how she gets through the back to school mayhem, because we all know that that is such a busy, stressful time, and we need routines. We need to stay organized, and she has a great perspective on how she does it as a homeschool mom. So I am going to hand it over to her and we can learn her quick tips. Mom,
Thanks, Janet. Hey guys. Okay, so I have been homeschooling I started my 14th year. So I have two kids in college. One actually graduates in December of this year, and another one is just started her junior year at college. And then I have two high schoolers left at home. And you know what? We started when my oldest was halfway through kindergarten or halfway through second grade. My youngest at the time was halfway through kindergarten, and I had a newborn. And then, of course, another one came along the way. So I totally understand the chaos of littles when they're around, and how you can you go from a planned day to an unplanned day in seconds. It happens so quickly. So just 5 quick tips, just that really are just more homeschool specific. So number 1, if you are starting homeschooling this year, don't wait to make sure that you are legal in the state that you live. So there is a website. It's called hslda.org, and it's Homeschool Legal Defense. They are around. They've been around since I believe since the 80s. And they basically just protect your rights as a homeschooler. So they're a fantastic resource. They are, how I look at them is they're like the law. And so if I have questions about the law on how I can stay legal, then I look to them. There's also state associations that are specific to each state, and you can Google that. And those have the law. They have resources that will help you with activities and organizations and co-ops and just all the things within your state, within your county, even within your city. And then lots of times they provide links. They provide information on driver's ed if you have a kid that is in the driving space. So each state has their own driver's ed rules that you have to comply with if you are a homeschooler. So those state associations are really fantastic. So tip number 1 is just don't wait to make sure that you are legal, because there are just some things that you just don't think about. So like in Virginia, you have to prove that you either graduated from high school with a diploma, or you can show a college diploma. Well, when we first moved to Virginia, I didn't know where my high school diploma was. No clue. I couldn't find it. And the only reason why I found my college diploma is because years ago we had them framed and it had been hanging on my wall. And so if I hadn't known where that was, it would have been chaos, and I would have really started to get a little stressed because I wouldn't have known where to look, how to find it. That was just something I hadn't kept track of over the course of, 20 plus years. So anyway, make sure that you're legal. Find out the laws of your state. Some are super easy, have no rules at all. Idaho, Arizona, some of the easiest states to homeschool on the planet. I believe Illinois is also a green state, meaning low regulation. So, and then there are other states that have high regulation. So there are a little bit more hoops to jump through. And then specifically, there are states like Virginia that if you want to homeschool within a religious exemption, you can do that. But there's a lot of paperwork. Well, not a lot of paperwork, but there is paperwork that you have to do, and you have to get like pastoral references and just all the things. So it takes time. It's not something that you can just wake up one morning. Well, I actually did wake up one morning and decided we were homeschooling, but I had some months to get my ducks in a row and to get all my filings done. Plus we lived in Arizona at the time. And so again, easiest state to homeschool on the planet. So there wasn't a lot to do. So just know that if you're going to homeschool, and if you haven't thought about what you need to do, then that would be my first number one tip. Make sure that you are legal and look at your resources. Don't just like ask your neighbor or your best friend Betty Lou down the street who's been homeschooling for 12 years and ask her like, well, so how did you get started? She probably has some great tips. Not going to say she doesn't, but check the laws either through HSLDA or your state association, which you can find online. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, you got to manage your mind, because our mind is a powerful thing. As we all know, it can wreck our day. It can make our day. And especially when you have kids at home and they're little, you can go from a day that wakes up and you're up, the sun is shining, the birds are singing, everything's fantastic. And 5 minutes into the day, 10 minutes, 2 hours, 5 hours into the day, all of a sudden you have one kid who's running 102.5 fever, another one's throwing up all over the kitchen, and one just ran into the island into the island, and there's this big goose egg growing on his head. It derails so quickly. So you have to manage your mind. You have to be able to just go into your day going, okay, this is what I have planned, and this is what we're going to do. But you know what? If it doesn't happen, that's okay. What are my top priorities for the day? You can't have 20. You can't have 25. You can't have 30. You can't have even 10 things that you want to get done. Top 3 things that have to get done. And if you can't get the top 3 things, then just have one. Just have one thing that you would like to get done that day. And if it is as simple as just getting your hair washed, wash your hair. And then think of the sense of accomplishment that you will feel at the end of the day if you got that one priority done. So don't set your expectations so ridiculously high that when you don't reach them, that you think, oh, I failed again. I didn't get done what I said I was going to get done or what I wanted to get done. So there's all kinds of ways to manage your mind. There's meditation. There's, of course, prayer. There's writing down. I got lists everywhere. If you're a list to paper, paper lister like I am, I have sticky notes all over. I have papers that have lists on them. I write down my grocery list. I constantly have that on my fridge, and I'm adding things constantly all the time. If you are in the midst of homeschooling and you just feel like it's just constant chaos and people, you don't know how to manage all the different age groups, know that it's a season and it's not going to last. It's just not going to last forever. You don't have to do 5 different curriculums to 5 different age groups if you don't want to. There's so many options available. You can do 2s and 2s. You can do all of them together, maybe just for history and science, and then do individual curriculums for math and reading. So there's ways to create an environment in which your mind does not feel overwhelmed all the time. So tip number 2 is definitely manage your mind. Come up with some way that if you are starting to feel overwhelmed, you have just some sort of, whether it's a trigger word or just trying to flip the script. So flip the script. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, I feel so overwhelmed today, there is just so much to do. Flip the script and tell yourself, you know what? I have a lot to do today, but I am so blessed that there is just an abundance of work and little people in my life filling my time. So it's literally, when you manage your mind, you have to manage the script that you're telling yourself, because number one thing, your kids are watching. And so what you do, your kids will do. How you act, your kids will act. So if you're overwhelmed, they'll be overwhelmed. If you're stressed, they're stressed. If you don't know the answer, they don't know the answer. It can just derail quickly. So tip number 2, manage your mind. Tip number 3, have a schedule for the day. Now, I'm not talking like strict schedule, and if you go off the schedule, the whole thing derails and, you just stop at step 2 because, that's where it went off track. Have a schedule. We all know that things happen, and schedules don't always go the way they're planned, right? But at least there's a schedule. I know that in the mornings, my kids are going to wake up at 7 a.m. I know that. We've done that for years, except when they were little, they woke up obviously a little earlier. But now that they're in high school, I know they will get up at 7 a.m. So I know that if I want to get some stuff done before they get up and school starts, that I need to get up a little sooner. So I do. I get up usually between, I don't know, 5:30, 6, whatever. And I have my coffee. I have my devotion time. I have my personal development time with reading. If I need to pick up some clutter, I do that. For work, I'll sometimes sit and I'll write my blogs, or I'll write down ideas for emails or whatever that is. But I just use that time in the morning that's quiet. Then when they get up, that's when the hustle and the bustle happens. I am not really a part of their homeschool day as much as I was when they were little, but I'm enough in it that I know that once we start school at 7 a.m., I will probably be interrupted. And that's okay. So I have a list of things that I would like to get accomplished, but I'm not so married to that list that it's just, oh my gosh, I wanted to clean the entire house today, but I didn't get anything done but clean the dishes. That's okay. You got the dishes cleaned and you're good. Okay. So I have a schedule. Know that, okay, I know in my mind that my two kids love doing math first. So I know that they're probably going to do math first. They're not going to need me for math because it's an online program. Then I know that my youngest son is going to move to government. Well, I know that by the time that means I should be exercising while he's doing math. So that's what I do. I exercise while he's doing math. But so by the time he's done with math, breakfast is happening. Then I can get cleaned up. And then when his next subject is government, that's what he's doing this year. And we're going to do some review questions after he's done with government. So I know that he's not going to interrupt me while I'm trying to exercise to do review questions for government because I had my schedule. I got up, I had my coffee, I had my devotion time, I had my prayer time, my personal development time, exercised while he was doing math. Now I'm done, cleaned up, moving on with the homeschool day. So hopefully this is resonating. This is helpful, but definitely have a schedule for your school day. It doesn't have to be strict. You just need to know about what time all this is going down, because sometimes things are going to take longer. Sometimes what you think is going to take 30 minutes is really going to take maybe an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. So just know that there's some wiggle room within that schedule, but not having any schedule at all and having every day be like this, open pond with just no rules creates just stress, not just for you, but for your kids, but definitely for you. Number 4, order curriculum. Order curriculum well before you need it. And I say that because some companies are really good about shipping it out immediately and you get it within 2 to 3 days. Other companies, it takes 2 weeks. Other companies, you can buy, of course, online. That's if you remember to buy online. So this year was the first year in 14 years that I totally forgot to order our math curriculum. Totally forgot. Just spaced it. I had everything ready to go. We were set up. I was feeling pretty good about myself. And then the first day of school, no math. My son comes to me and he's like, so we doing math this year? Yes, we are. Why do you ask? So, that kind of, again, changed the schedule. I can get stressed about it. We can get overwhelmed about it, but we're not going to. So I ordered it. It's an online curriculum, but they're one of those online companies that you don't get a quick turnaround within seconds. You order it and then you get it delivered into your inbox, the login instructions, all the things within 2 to 3 days. So math this week pretty much went out the window. So we'll start math next week. That's what happens, right? So make sure you order curriculum and you give yourself enough time to order it, get it, organize it, and understand how you're going to be using it for the year. Tip number 5, time management. I know we all have a love-hate relationship with time management. I have planners, I have journals, I have time blocking sheets. You name it, I have it. I've used it. It's just what I do. I have Trello boards. I mean, there's so much, right, to keep track of. So time management, basically that boils down to knowing what you do all day. So if you know that you waste 2 hours a day looking at Instagram, All right. You know that. You know that 2 hours of your day is gone. So, how are you going to manage the rest of your day to get the stuff that you need done, knowing that you're going to waste 2 hours on Instagram? Or instead of doing that collectively, then sometimes you can use it as a bargaining tool. I have a child that loves to read, loves to read. However, she would read all day if I let her. So there are days, especially like on the weekends or something, that I need all hands on deck. I need all my kids focused and helping me. Then it becomes like this bargaining thing. And you have to, and I've even done this with myself too, when I'm in the midst of a book that I just absolutely love and I don't want to put down. And I'll say to myself, okay, I'm going to read for 15 minutes and then I'm going to get up and I'm going to go clean that stupid bathroom that I've been wanting to clean for like the past 3 days. I'm going to do that. Sit down. So then I've given myself permission and I don't feel bad. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel rushed. I don't feel like I should be up and doing something else. I read for 15 minutes and I'm like, okay, I've set my timer. I'm done reading and I'm going to go clean that bathroom. And then as a reward, if I want to read for another 15 minutes, you can do that. Set your timer, read for 15 minutes, go and do a different chore. I am not, as I've gotten older, I have found that I am terrible at sitting and doing and focusing for long periods of time. And I think it's just because it's just the nature of being a mom, right? We have things that are constantly happening. It's like give a mom a muffin, you walk into the kitchen with the intention of filling up your water bottle, but on the way you see, socks on the floor. And so you think, oh, where did those socks go? Oh, they go upstairs. So then you go upstairs and put the socks away. And while you're upstairs putting the socks away, you notice that, somebody's bathroom is a mess. And so then you do that. And then on the way out, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to make my bed. And so then you make your bed. And by the time you're done, an hour has passed and you still didn't get your water, right? Can I get an amen? I know, exactly. So we have to manage our time. And if you want to, not something that you have to do, but what is helpful, and you don't have to be super strict about it either, but what's helpful is if you want to spend like a day, 5 days is better because it kind of gives you a week, a glimpse of the week, but literally keeping track of everything you do in like 15-minute increments. I know, don't freak. It's fine. It's not overwhelming at first. The first day you think it is, but then you get used to it. You write down, but then you actually get to see visually what you're doing with your time and how long things take. So if you think that cleaning the bathroom really only takes you 5 minutes, but it really takes you 30 minutes and you weren't screwing around, then give yourself some grace that if you really thought this chore was going to only be a 5-minute chore, but it really is the 30-minute chore, then, your mind can accept that. And then you're not stressed about getting it done. So, and if you then know that, okay, well, I want to get all this stuff done. Well, can you really get all that stuff done that you want to do within this context of time? So anyway, that's, those are my 5 tips. Hopefully, that was like quick. There's so much more detail that I could go into, but that's like the real quick down and dirty. And then I know, Janet, you wanted me to speak about preschool.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple tips. I know there's a couple of us in this group that are doing some preschool curriculum at home. I know it's a little bit different than when you're preschooling your school age kids. So I'm just curious what your tips are for that.
Yeah. That can go a bajillion different ways. I didn't spend much time preschooling. My kids saw what my younger kids saw what my older kids were doing. So I always would give them something to do, and their attention span is like a hot second anyway, especially when they're like 2 and 3. So there was always crafting supplies around. There was always colored pencils and markers and paper and construction paper and colored paper. Every paper you could imagine was around, so they could constantly do stuff. You get them started on a project and they spend 2 seconds, and that's fine. I mean, because that's just the nature of it. So that was just, preschool is just playing and interacting with the environment and pretending in the environment and just learning the boundaries and what, that's when they start noticing, that time is passing, and what does that mean? And what color is that? And how do you make that, mommy? And, how does the wash machine work? I mean, it's like, why? I mean, it's all the whys, they're constantly asking questions. So that's when homeschooling is like truly every day, every second is like a teaching moment. So preschool, that's just kind of a fun time, especially when they're small. Don't spend a lot of money on preschool. Make it fun. Make it something that sounds exciting. If you're a glitter girl, then glitter it up. I hated glitter. I didn't want glitter in my house. I did glitter once, and I was like, yeah, that was dumb. I don't know what I was thinking. But anything that you can think of, crafts, they just love to work with their hands, right? So anything that you can think of, Play-Doh, have them easy bake ovens. I mean, whatever it is, literally everything that you can do with them or they can do through play and creating is basically becomes preschool. You can try and sit down and show them how to write their name. Whiteboards are a great way to do that because they can squiggle on the whiteboard and you can erase it and they can erase it and they can do it again. And they even have whiteboards that actually have, so they can trace the numbers and stuff.
Oh, that's a good idea. I should look for that. My kids
Yeah.
love whiteboards. We did a ton of that over the summer.
Yeah. And what's great is if you have several kids, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you can buy those big sheets of, laminate boards, and then they'll cut them for you. So you can tell them, I want 4 boards in 8x10s. I want 4 8x10 boards. And then they'll cut them into 8x10 sizes. And then you can go and buy some really fun colored duct tape. And then you just decorate the edges of the board. And then it becomes their board because it's, they've decorated it. They've picked it out. It's just fun, do they last forever? No, but it's preschool. You don't want an 8x10 board hanging around your house for a long period of time anyway. It's something they're going to use it forever anyway. So that's when they're little. When my kids were 4, of course, my 2 started out in public school. My older 2 started out in public school. So we didn't do preschool at home for the most part, like a formal preschool at home. My younger 2, when they became 4 or they were turning 4 during the school year, I just thought, why not just start? I mean, I knew I wasn't going to waste money on a preschool curriculum because I just thought they're so similar. Preschool and kindergarten, and for a 4-year-old, if you look at the spectrum of curriculum that's out there, it's just so similar. They're learning their numbers, they're learning their colors, they're learning their shapes, they're learning how to write, they're learning sight words and just all the things. So I just dumped them into kindergarten is basically what I did. There's programs out there that have like kindergarten, like it's called K4. So it's kindergarten for 4-year-olds, kindergarten for 5-year-olds. You can do K4 or you can just dump them into K5, knowing that if you dump them into K5 and they struggle and it takes you 2 years to do K5, that's okay. Do K5 with one thing and then move on and do K5 with, something else and just take your time through it. But I would certainly, and of course it depends on your child and what's going on at home and how much into school everybody is, how active or not active, or if you've got really tactile learners or very, kinesthetic learners that are constantly on the move. It really just kind of depends. But I would just start teaching kindergarten, especially if they're 4. I mean, again, also depends on whether or not you're going to put them in public school the next year, because if you do that, then the chances of them being ahead of the curve are big too. So just remember that anything you do at home is going to show up in school when you put them in school, meaning they'll probably show up to the first day of school knowing 80% more than the rest of the class, just because you've invested in them. You've taken the time to teach and to show and do all the things. So just know that. I mean, it's not good. It's not bad. It's just information to know going in that, okay, if I do this at home this year and what I'm doing at home is going to impact the rest of their education, you have to think of it broad spectrum. And I didn't think about broad spectrum when I first started because it was just crisis management. I mean, let's be honest. I started and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even think that God had like notified the right person. I thought that he meant, to call the lady next door. I'm like, but look at her. What are you talking to me about homeschooling? So, I was just crisis management that first year. I had no idea what I was doing. And so, but looking back, you think, my gosh, it goes so fast. And everything is so intertwined and interweaved and interconnected that what you do in kindergarten literally impacts the trajectory of, how their education is just going to go. And I know that's hard to wrap your brain around when you're looking at your little people and you're thinking, are you kidding me? That makes no sense. But you just, once you start thinking about education and school, not that it has to be so, formal and so, we must learn this right now and this is how we're going to do it. But it's a journey, and it's a 12-year journey, and you have to look at it as a 12-year journey collectively, not year by year by year, because then it can get cumbersome. You think every year like, oh, it's another year, versus if you look at it as a long journey of just, okay, this is what I got, 12 years. Look at this. Look at how much time I've got. This is fantastic. What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? It just changes the perspective of how you look at things.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. I know like my fifth grader, she struggles with math. So if I stop looking at like just this year, I think it'll be easier for me because my sister and I basically grew up in home childcare environment. Our mom did home daycare for over 30 years. So we grew up in that, and we're pretty used to just, letting the kids play, having drawing supplies out all the time. Like we're used to the preschool age stuff, not so much like formal curriculum, but just, like guiding them in play, teaching them throughout the day, stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, with having a daughter a little bit older going through school, it's a whole new territory for me. So that perspective shift, I think, is going to help a lot because, she excels in other subjects like reading and writing. She's super creative. She's a great artist. She even does video editing. I mean, she's very talented, but math, she struggles. And so I really need to stop thinking about, just this year, just this one test. And I know she's going to get there, like all kids do, and that's something that we've seen since we've grown up with lots and lots of kids.
Right. Right. No, it's true. And, she might not get to where, not everybody's going to want to take calc too. Not everyone's going to want to do that. Some people are going to be, peace out in, well, they used to call it trig. Now it's called pre-calc. So if that's the case, great. My watch is talking to me. So if that's the case, yeah, absolutely. Great. But teach, know what their strengths are. Like you said, know what they're struggling with. And, if she's struggling in math at the fifth grade level, then how do you help her get through what she needs to get through in order to, to continue to, because we all want our kids to excel, but obviously we're all going to be better at something, right? You can't be great at everything. That's just not how God made us. We have strengths and we have weaknesses. So, yeah. And plus, it all builds on each other. The stuff that they learned even in kindergarten is going to show up in fifth grade math. And it's, my son was a tutor for 4 years. Yeah. He started tutoring when he was 15, he was a math tutor. And that was one of the things that he did notice as a tutor. It was just, going back and revisiting concepts that were taught, should have been taught or something, or had been forgotten in second grade that was impacting how they were learning something in fifth grade or beyond. So that's a good point, Janet, because it's so true. You just never know, what they'll remember or not remember and how it impacts their entire future.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I absolutely love the tips and, even just starting with like getting legal. During the beginning of the pandemic, I actually did homeschool, like a formal curriculum for our fifth grader when she was in second grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very fortunate that I had some friends homeschooling. So they did introduce me to HSLDA and get, just tell me that that's the route you go through so that you have that legal protection, because it's really scary, especially when you feel guided to do it and you don't know where to start, and it's just a whole brand new thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate all these tips. And I mean, I love too that you're like me, like you kind of have a schedule, you have a routine, but you're not going to beat yourself up if it doesn't go exactly to plan. I mean, how can it with kids?
I know, right? I mean, the older they get, the better the plan. I mean, the better the plan goes. But so if you just have to you can't compare yourself to what your next door neighbor, you see her doing with the older kids, and well, she seems to never be derailed by time schedules, or she got everything done, or her kids get whatever, and here you are with a newborn, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old and whatever, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm the hot mess express walking around, and she's like, you homeschool, so did you get any school done today? And you're like, I don't know.
They know how to turn the washing machine on.
Yeah,
No.
I can tell you what we did, but yes, we got school done. So it's just, you just move through seasons like anything else. And I mean, of course you have to get school done because that's what you signed up for when you decided to homeschool, but it's not, you can also be finishing up school in the evening if you didn't get it done during the day, or on a Saturday. I mean, there's so much flexibility. So
yeah, that's such a nice thing. I mean, and we kind of went through that just because we homeschooled in the most stressful environment, and it took such an emotional toll on everyone. And there were some days where Eleanor was just not in the right mindset to do school, and you know what? We did school later in the afternoon that day. Like it just, we weren't going to be rigid with it and just allow her to get through. All of us needed to process. So.
Right.
I mean, and life is stressful regardless, but yeah, I mean, I just know firsthand, like exactly what that's like.
Yeah. Well, and when you're not expecting it, that just makes it, I mean, it was a decision that was just like dropped on so many people, and everybody was scrambling to figure out what it even meant. And there's so much information out there anyway, that's just, that is not meant to make you feel good about yourself. I mean, you see,
just a moment, babe.
You see reels and you see lives and you see just information and stuff all the time. And I mean, I even see it and I look at it and I'm like, wow, that is so not how that happens. Because they make it look like sunshine and roses, and it's perfectly curated photos, and everybody's color coordinated, and breakfast. You know what I mean? Who has time for that? The people that do that, I applaud them. I mean, close to them, but I certainly never.
I can't pull that one out right now. All right. Well, our day is, you can obviously see that it's not going exactly to plan, and that's totally fine.
She has a lot of things to say.
Yeah. And you know what? This is something like her brother just started kindergarten yesterday. So, and they are like this. They are almost like twins. They're 16 months apart. So this is the first 2 days where she does not have her play buddy right by her side, like she has for almost 4 years. So this is a new transition for us right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're now her brother.
Yeah. We're doing a lot, which is great. And I'm so thankful to have that time with her, but we have to adjust. So
Absolutely.
Well, thanks again for coming on, Karena, and make sure to share your socials in your group. I know there's a couple homeschooling moms in the group, so I would love for them to connect with you if they have questions, or if anybody's considering homeschool, like reach out to Karena if you don't have homeschool moms that can help you, because you don't need to try to go through it by yourself. There's a lot of resources and groups and co-ops and all sorts of things. So you definitely don't need to feel like you are all by yourself in it.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I'll drop all my links and stuff in the comment section after the live.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks again, Karena.
Thanks, Janet. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
What's it gonna be?